One of the books I read and listened to over 10 times is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and with over 10 million copies sold and translated over 33 languages, it's truly helped people become more present and happy and probably also more enlightened. So in this beautiful forest, we'll together go through chapter by chapter in this book and also tell you how I implemented all these chapters, all this wisdom into my life to be maximally productive, and how you can do it too. In the first chapter, Eckhart introduces this radical idea that we are not our minds, call it inner commentator or thoughts or even a sense of self. What we are instead is simply awareness, or the thing that observes. We might sometimes hear some voice in our head just talking about anything that can happen or anything we just learned, and in that case the awareness and the fact that we know it, that is us, and the voice in our head, that's the thing pretending to be us. And for all Lord of the Rings fans, imagine that your mind is the worm tongue and you yourself are Theoden, and you get that idea. And according to Eckhart, all people identify with their minds or their worm tongue, so this creates this illusion of separation, of not being satisfied enough. But as soon as we realize that we are not our thoughts, we are not the voice in our head, we can start appreciating the world around us. So I remind myself now that the voice in my head, my thoughts, my worldviews, my aspirations, they are not me. And also whenever I feel some kind of worry or insecurity in the moment, I know it's not me either. Then I can sort of forget myself and merge together with my work or other kinds of activities, which is truly powerful feeling. In the next chapter, Eckhart goes deeper into pain, ego, and that restless feeling or anxiety. All of them are one and the same, which is not accepting what's happening right now. Take for instance pain. It's a feeling that we do not want to feel. Because if we wanted to feel it, we would call it something else. Ego here is a sense of self and identity and wants to be protected at all costs. And then we have this constant unease that could be either restlessness, anxiety, discontent, but most of all fear of what's happening right now. Have to tense up or otherwise everything will just fall apart. But the solution is once again to be present. And already from the start, Eckhart says that you do not need to sort of intellectually understand the present moment in order to get it. That's pretty intuitive in a sense, but we often fall into this trap that, or at least I fall into this trap very often, that I want to ruminate whether I was happy or whether I was present, whether I was fulfilled. It's like I want to understand what it meant and how to get there, this step-by-step formula, and then I could relax. And by just letting go, understanding and sort of appreciating what was there in front of me or what I heard, that turned out to be the answer. It's in this chapter that Eckhart introduces past and future, and that they are illusions that we sort of engage in too much. Whenever we're too guilty of our memories or crafting the stories of our lives, we are trapped in the past. And conversely, when we are worrying or cannot relax, we are stuck in the future and not here. I mean, sure, it helps to plan out days and weeks or so, but you don't want to ruminate there, but instead be right here, as you can do something about it. And in reality, the present moment is all we ever have, free from this made-up timeline. And according to Eckhart, we feel a lot of joy and ease and lightness once we deeply accept that fact. And what helped me there is treating right now as the moment that we look forward to all my life, and so really taking advantage of that. Letting go everything else and put now as the main priority above everything. Like calling now the paradise and just wandering around in awe. It doesn't need to be in nature or such a forest like this. It could be anywhere really. In this chapter, Eckhart lists out some common symptoms of avoiding this now. These are resentment for what we're doing, complaining about something, procrastinating for no reason, feeling too stressed, worrying, and also waiting for this specific event. Could be the perfect partner, the perfect house, the perfect job, a certain milestone, or getting into retirement. And these are symptoms that most of us do all the time to some degree. But as long as we're conscious about what we're doing right now, all this kind of inner resistance, it began to be more and more solving. For example, if I notice tensing out my hands and think about driving in the dark, I am more influenced to simply snap back to where I am and sort of letting go of everything else. And especially when things go wrong or in challenging situations, we tend to be sort of taken over by some kind of uncontrollable reaction really. And from there it's sort of like we're on autopilot, just frantically doing things, like saying stuff like that we normally don't say. And then after we realize that, okay, what just happened? So this is why, according to Eckhart, we need to be more present when in peacetime, when everything's going quite smoothly, so we can be more aware when it's not going that. And this chapter is sort of the same as the others, but Eckhart mentions again that we can measure how awake and enlightened we are. And this is how long the time gap between when we see something, hear something, feel something, which is all the time by the way, and when we start to think about something. So of course I'm practicing right now to make the time gap longer and longer. And a trick I use is to look and imagine myself not being able to talk, just sort of no words. So Eckhart defines the inner body as when we feel ourselves so much, so it's sort of its own energy field. I know this sounds kind of woo-woo, but think of it something that you feel right now even stronger. But it's not feel bad at all. It's more like a massage and can be very centered and grounded regardless of what happens. The key is to be in a state of permanent connectedness to the inner body, to feel it at all times. So whenever something comes up as a surprise or shock, we should feel our body first. Even when we are sick, we should feel everything that happens in order to relax and heal it much faster. So in chapter 7, Eckhart talks about the value of nothing or space between things, and that we can feel but not necessarily know it. Like imagine yourself looking out from the horizon without thought, and there's this feeling of spaciousness. And chapter 8 talks about how you can become present in relationships, which is the key to help it thrive. Eckhart mentions that especially we men have a tendency to call ourselves enlightened because we don't feel our bodies enough. And while we definitely don't need to vent out our emotion, we should feel this kind of joy, this feel kind of openness and acceptance towards anything if you are truly enlightened. This was almost my favorite chapter because it goes beyond the polarities like good and bad, good and evil, positive, negative, etc. Because everything is as it is, and then it sort of becomes like this macro positive, because both the positive and the negative are beneficial. It's not like we are denying anything negative, but we are paying attention to the shadows as well. And to illustrate this, the book tells about the Zen master called Banzan. One day before he was enlightened, he came across a butcher and the customer. And the customer said, "Give me the best piece of meat you have." And the butcher replied, "Every piece of meat is the best. There is no piece of meat here that is not the best." And when Banzan heard that, he became enlightened because of this indiscrimination between good and bad. And this is also why you not have arguments the more conscious you become, because it's just the other person's viewpoint, and we don't necessarily need to believe that just because something else thinks this way that we sort of need to defend us against that. This has helped me tremendously actually when talking to other people, because previously I could feel a little bit defensive and we had some kind of disagreement together, but now it's like, okay, you think like this, okay, cool. Why being defensive if I was not threatened in the first place? And Eckhart takes that idea to his conclusion at the end of this chapter and tells that in the end we don't really need the world anymore, or at least not the world any different as it is. Ironically, there's this paradoxical effect that once we don't need it, then we can make true contributions to it, because now we're not motivated by greed or by fear or by hate or whatever kinds of malicious forces, but instead we simply know what is good for the situation at large, and then we can sort of act in favor of it. And then we become someone people look up to as inspirations or heroes. Now this is probably the most important chapter in the book, because it goes very practical on how to get all this that's been mentioned throughout this book, how to get into this presence and enlightenment, quote it that way. And the answer is surrender. I know I thought the same, like, why should we defeat and give up? But surrender actually means something different. It means exactly what we've been talking about the whole time. Just observing what we see, hear and feel right now without wanting anything else. It's the quality of your consciousness of the moment that is the main determinant of what kind of future you will experience. So surrender is the most important thing you can do to bring about positive change. Any action you take is secondary. No truly positive action can arise out of an unsurrendered state of consciousness. But what if I cannot surrender or accept what's going on right now, you might say? Then do something about it immediately, whether it's speaking up or bringing a change or escaping the situation altogether. And the fact that you become laser focused in this moment makes it especially easy to sort of get up and get into motion and make things happen. And alternatively, just accept that you cannot accept this permanent state of unease, and that usually does the trick. If you were conscious, as to say, totally present in the now, all negativity would dissolve almost instantly. It could not survive in your presence, it can only survive in your absence. You keep your unhappiness alive by giving it time. That is its lifeblood. Remove time through intense present moment awareness and it dies. But do you want it to die? Have you truly had enough? Who would you be without it? But what if everyone starts to take advantage of me right now, I might say? And although they might try, Eckhart said that conscious people cannot be used by unconscious people. They simply see through the other person, let him or her be, but can still say no firmly and clearly without any resistance. It's like this Eastern martial arts saying of yielding to overcome instead of resisting the opponent's force. You also don't need to have this persona or personality or having this role playing, whatever it is. Just be simple and real. But surrender just feels so painful, I cannot take it anymore. And according to Eckhart, the pain and tension does not go away because we don't want them anymore. To surrender to them, we feel like they are the VIP guests of the show or the spa experience we saw after. In my experience, once I adopt this forward mentality of taking what I feel is my preferred experience, this feels much, much better. Kind of like this inner body thing we talked about earlier. But once again, if you get only one thing from this book, let it be this. See, hear, and feel here and now as if nothing else exists and you do not want anything else from it. Then everything feels quiet inside and it's so easy to do the right thing with an extremely light touch. And of course the book covers a lot more than I mentioned here, so you can click the link in the description to get the book. I highly recommend it. On that, I hope you liked this book summary, and if you want to see more of these videos, consider clicking that subscribe button below. That helps me up a lot, especially, and YouTube is able to spread more of these videos to people like you, so it's a win-win for everyone. Thanks a lot and see you in the next one.